Let's look at adding some constraints to our cloth. So I'm going to go to Create, Polygon, Plane, scale it from the center up to the size of the grid, rotate it vertically 90 degrees, place it above the grid, and divide it 30 and 30. Okay, good. That's always a good starting point. Now I'm going to go ahead and create it to be cloth. So I'll go here, create end cloth. And just so it doesn't fall through the ground, I'm going to go click on this. I'm going to go find the nucleus. I'm going to say use plane. That way it's not going to fall below here. Okay. Now I can give myself 500 frames, rewind to the beginning and press play. And there we go. That's a good start. Now I can right click, go to vertex, and I'm going to select a corner vertex, and then I'm going to go to nContraint component. I'll use the component constraint if I want it to kind of like stay in place in that location. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Whoop, I'm sorry. Not a component constraint. I apologize. I just hit undo. I want to do a transform constraint. That's the one that's going to hold it in place. We'll do a component constraint later. Now if I hit play, I can see that that's going to hold it in place. Just like that. Okay. What I could do is I could hold all the corners in place like this. And hit play. Well, once I select those, I'm going to go here and do a transform constraint. There we go. Now if I rewind and hit play, I can see that this is kind of like a hanging cloth. And now it's kind of interesting. If I want to adjust the nucleus, notice that I could click on this and go find nucleus in the tabs up here, or I could just click on nucleus over in the outliner. Now I could find stuff like, if I rewind and hit play, I can adjust the wind speed. And I can see how that just kind of updates like that. Or I can bring it back down to 0. Okay. I can also do this. I can create a polygon sphere, and I can have this sphere interact with this cloth. And this is really actually pretty cool. So I'm going to go up here to fields and solvers, interact. Let me see here. I want to do this live. So let me see. Sometimes they kind of move these menus around on me. Let me see here. There it is, interactive playback. That's what I was looking for. And when I do this, it's going to start at the first frame, and then it's going to play, and I can kind of interact with it all the way until it gets to the end of my timeline. So let me try that. Interactive playback. Now, when I move this, you can see that it's going to interact. Okay, now it's weird. It's not, maybe as you expect, it's not colliding with that. So I'm going to hit stop and rewind. So I'm going to make this a passive collider. Okay, nCloth create passive collider. Now if I select this and go to fields and solvers, interactive playback, now if I move this, you can see how it updates, which is pretty cool. Okay, now if I push it really far, it's never going to break, okay, the cloth. And maybe you do want it to break the cloth. Okay, so what I could do is I'm going to hit stop and rewind. So I could select, I could right click on a vertex, and then I'll use my paint selection over here and paint some areas like that. Okay, maybe like that. And now I could say terrible surface. Okay, now I should be able to select this in object mode, go to my move, and then I'll go to field solvers, interactive playback. And now if I push this really hard, I can start to see that it rips in the areas that I allowed it to be terrible. Okay, and I can keep playing with this all the way up until once again my time slider runs out. Then the fun is all over. And you can see that once the time slider runs out, I can keep moving the ball, but it's not going to interactively update. And if I didn't use that interactive update, you can see that I can move the ball, but it's not going to do anything. Or if I hit play, now it's kind of locked in. I can't move the ball. Okay, so you kind of decide what you want. So I think that interactive playback is pretty cool. So we added some constraints. We added some a terrible surface and a transform constraint. So I'll just kind of show you a little bit more practical use of this. So if I just did a new scene, if I wanted to make a flag, that'd be really simple. I could just create a plane, rotate it like this, and then I can give it some divisions. I just want to make these also more square instead of rectangular. Okay, that looks pretty good. And now I could bring this up. There we go. Now what I could do is, like, this doesn't even need to be physically connected to this. I mean, it could look like it's physically connected. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to, I'll just pull it out a little bit. I'm going to go to nCloth, create nCloth. Then I'm going to select this row of vertices. And it depends. Do I want the whole flag connected? Maybe I do. So then if I do, I could just go to transform constraint. I'll hit Alt-B. There we go. Now we can see it a little bit better. And now if I hit play, it's like that. And I'm going to go, once again, go into my nucleus, hit stop, and I'm going to increase my wind speed. Yeah, there we go. Awesome. So now we've got a flag, and if it was a pirate flag, maybe I want the ends of it to be torn. So maybe I select some of this. And I can go to terrible surface. And now I can see that that is now tears. Okay. But you may want, like, you can see that when it's tearing, I'm just going to increase the wind significantly. Okay. So you can see that it breaks it up. But if I stop it, okay, let me just get it going a little bit. Okay. You can see that it looks kind of janky because how really kind of rigid it is, or how kind of it's breaking only along those lines. So I feel like a better idea is to add a transparency map of a ripped flag. So I'm just going to go ahead and pause the video for a second. So if you want more control kind of on the ripped edges, you can see here that what I did is I just applied a material to the transparency. So if I break that, I can see that the flag is just a solid object, right? It's totally fine, it's dynamic, it's moving. But then what I did was I went to material attributes, and then on transparency, I went here and I applied a color of this. So basically where it's white, it's going to be the visible flag, and where it's black, I just kind of painted it to make it look like a rip in Photoshop. And you can see that there's this little line here. I just turned the filter type to off. And now you can see that now it looks like it's a little bit more kind of naturally ripped. So it's not truly ripped there, but I feel like it'll give the illusion that it's ripped. And I could even paint, on the transparency, I could like some holes in here and stuff like that. So don't think if you need a fine rip that you need to kind of like tear it vertex by vertex. You can kind of cheat it, because once again you can see here that's just what it's doing, and it's just kind of an illusion that it's ripped that fine. Okay, so just kind of a cool look at some of these constraints, and I'll take a look at some other constraints in the next lesson.